freaky stories, just because they never happened, don't mean they ain't true.
Hey! Yo, over here!
Finally! You're late. A guy gets tired of waiting around, you know. You humans. What I want to know is who died and made you ruler of the planet, huh? Oh, yeah. Giant lizards. Never mind. But still, if you ask me, you pesky bipeds aren't fit to run a water faucet, let alone a planet. I was holed up until recently behind this nice, comfy refrigerator. When what happens? I get chased out with a broom. Why? Simply because I made an unscheduled appearance in the potato salad. Well, it's not like I wasn't gonna leave them any. Jeez. So I figure I'm better off crashing here with my own kind, rather than trying to integrate with those hominidae we love to hate. Human beings. I've spent my entire post-larval life collecting stories. Freaky stories. Every one of them positively true. And today, I'm gonna fill you in on a few animalian types. Unlucky enough to encounter you two-legged beasties. Oh, sure, you may not agree with my theory now, but after you hear this, you will, brother. You will. This is a true story. Yeah, happened to a friend of mine.
There was this typical family, right? 2 kids, mom, dad. They all went down to Mexico for a vacation. So, one morning, Mom convinced everybody to go souvenir shopping. Everybody was loaded up with all these big sombreros, necklaces, and piñatas, and Michael accidentally dropped one of those dolls with the great big eyes. Well, when they got back to the hotel, Mom freaked on him for losing the doll. He went back outside, and what did he see but this scrawny little animal with the doll in its mouth? He called the rest of the family to look, and they figured it must be some kind of chihuahua or something that followed them back from the market. Well, they immediately fell in love with the little guy, even though he was kind of weird looking, all skinny and bony with these pointy ears and big bulgy eyes. So they decided to keep him. They brought him in, gave him a bath, and named him George. George and the kids became inseparable during the rest of their vacation. When it came time to leave, they naturally assumed George was coming with them. When Dad said no, the kids were horrified. Michael tried the old hold your breath till you turn blue strategy. The parents caved in. But Dad was worried. He knew they'd have trouble at the border, since the animal had no papers, no shots, no passport. Dad figured their only chance was to smuggle him home. But when they put George in a suitcase, he couldn't breathe right and made all these wheezing noises like a rhino with bronchitis. And he wouldn't fit under a souvenir sombrero, and wasn't quite attractive enough to pass off as Amanda's doll. The only solution was to stuff him down Mom's dress. So they did. They also slid a rubber squeaky toy into Mom's girdle to keep him quiet. They got through customs without a hitch and finally introduced George to his new home in the burbs. The kids were ecstatic. Not only did they have a dog, they had the coolest pet any of their friends had ever seen. They paraded George all around town with the pride of new parents. And then one day, Michael decided to take George to school for show and tell. They crammed him into a school bag and ran down to meet the bus. A couple hours later, the phone rang. It was the school's principal. He said that he wanted to see Mom at the school right away. Mom jumped into the car and sped off. She arrived at the school just as Dad pulled up. The principal had called Dad at work and asked him to come in too. He was waiting for them at the front door. Is something wrong? Asked Dad. It's not one of the kids again, is it? The principal led the way to the science room.
No, there's another problem,
said Mr. Lamprey, the science teacher.
Tell me, where did you get your pet.
Mom and Dad exchanged glances. They weren't about to admit they smuggled George home from their Mexican vacation. Finally, Mom piped up. "We found him in the park." Mr. Lamprey, the science teacher, looked at her a little confused.
Funny,
He said,
your pet isn't from around here. You might say that it's a tropical breed. And stranger still, George isn't even a dog at all.
Mom and Dad looked at Mr. Lamprey, the science teacher, in total bewilderment. The science teacher took a deep breath. He told them, gently, trying not to shock them, that their beloved pet was a giant Mexican sewer rat. Hey, I'm not kidding. It's a true story. By the way, know anybody that wants a pet? Free to a good home.
You know, this place ain't half bad. Plenty of company, regular chow. Hey, I wonder if they get cable. Ugh, man, this bowl is cold on the old tushy. Yeah, I could get used to it here. Not like this joint I hauled up in a couple of weeks ago. One of them roach hotels. Oh, what a pit. And who designed the place? Humans? No pool. And it was like they didn't want you to leave. Ah, well. Home is where you make it. And like this next story points out, home can be anywhere. But you'll see, this is a true story. Yeah, it happened to a friend of mine.
Everybody loves a pet. Dogs, cats, fish of every shape and size. They're everywhere. It seems almost every creature in nature has been the object of man's affection at one time or another. Even the ever-loving lizard family hasn't escaped that distinction. You see, it all started with the turtles. They were the ideal pet. Cheap, plentiful, easy to care for, though not exactly what you'd call cuddle. They were selling so well that pet stores started importing salamanders and other pollywogs to cash in on the fat. And that's what this kid Vinny came home with. It's a gator, Mom. A genuine miniature baby man-eater from darkest Florida. Won't grow more than a foot or two long. Guaranteed. Can I keep him? It sounded too good to be true. It was. You see, despite their armor plating, most of the creepy crawlies wound up doing the backstroke in their tanks. Except for Vinny's miniature man-eater, which had this incredible appetite. It just kept on eating, and eating, and eating. Not that it was getting any bigger, mind you. It was only a few inches long. But where the heck was he putting all the food? That pesky lizard was eating Vinny's folks out of house and home. Anyhow, one day, Vinny was giving his gator a bath when his mom called him for supper. Vinny figured that he'd leave him in there, because gators love the water anyhow. And besides, where could he go? But when he got back, the gator was gone. He must have flushed it himself. They called a plumber to look in the pipes, but it was too late. The lizard had made good his escape. Anyhow, one day during the next spring, Vinny and his pals were fishing for nickels through a sewer grate, using the old chewing gum on a stick method. And suddenly, something yanked the stick right out of Vinny's hands. Got the gum, too. Vinny just stood there, stunned. He pried back the lid to get a better look. Eddie put his head into the manhole to see what was going on in it. It almost cost him his schnoz. Golly, they screamed. There's something down there, and it smells real bad, too. Vinny sent Joey to get another stick. When Joey brought it, Vinny poked into the musty blackness of the sewer. After a few tries, something caught the branch, then yanked it hard. Vinny could barely keep his footing. The boys scrambled to keep him from going into the drink. Just then, a cop came by. "What do you think you're doing?" he said. Then he told him to get away from the sewer. "But mister," said Vinny, "there's something down there." "Sure." The cop went to look, but it was too dark to see anything. He grabbed onto the branch, and jerk, he was almost pulled in too. He called another guy over to help. They all pitched in to haul it up, whatever it was. They hoisted it, twisting and fighting right out of the water. and it didn't let go of the stick. They strained as they hauled the thing. It must have weighed a couple of 100 pounds. Straight up, through the sewer tunnel, into the manhole, and up onto the street. They looked at it. It looked at them. And then it started snapping. Holy cow! It's an 8-foot gator! Hey, I'm not kidding. It's a true story. Vinny's gator, all grown up. And the way I hear it, next time you drop a nickel down a sewer, watch your fingers when you try to fish it out.
All those poor gators wanted was a happy home, just like anybody else. Come to think of it, I need a place to live. But if only somebody'd make me an offer. That's as good an offer as any. Whoa, fish breath, though. Don't go away. Did you wash your hands? Yo, welcome to the new digs. What do you think, huh? Hey, here's something. Do you know humans ain't even a finished product? Still evolving. A new model comes out every 10,000 years or so, and they still can't get it right. Well, not like us. Haven't changed in 2 million years. Heck, if it ain't broke. Hey, knock it off. You're taking the crease out of the antenna. Is that any way to treat your new roomie? Looks like I'm gonna have to teach this new roomie of mine a lesson. Yeah, this ought to do it. Oh, but first, while you humans are evolving, you might want to think about night vision. Then you'd be able to avoid situations like this next one. Now, this is a true story. It happened to a friend of mine.
There was this cabbie named Marty who worked the graveyard shift. Now, one time, it was near the end of his run. He was getting ready to call it a night. But just then, a guy came out of a restaurant and flagged him down. Marty was off duty, but he figured that he might as well pick up this one last fare, seeing that business had been slow and all. The guy got into the back and gave him an address on the outskirts of town. Not an actual street number, just an intersection. Even though it was a good fare, Marty instantly regretted picking this guy up. Something just didn't feel right. The guy was unshaven and looked like he'd been wearing the same jacket for days. Plus, he had kind of a weird smell. Marty couldn't put his finger on what it was, something like peanuts. But it wasn't exactly pleasant. So Marty got to driving. There wasn't any traffic, but the going was pretty slow. The fog that night was thicker than pea soup. He turned down the concession road where he was supposed to drop the guy off. The road looked like it hadn't been driven on in years. The weeds were overgrown on both sides, and the gravel was loose and slippery. Marty couldn't wait to get rid of this guy and go home, so he was driving a little faster than he should have been going. Then something, a shape, jumped out of the mist in front of the car. Marty slammed on the brakes. Last thing he wanted at this time of night was a squirt of skunk juice. He missed the animal, went into a skid, off the road, coming to a stop in a ditch. "This will be fine," said the guy in the back, as he tossed Marty a 10 and hopped out the door. Marty couldn't believe it. He jumped out of the cab only to see the guy disappear into the fog. He looked at his poor cab and scratched his head. Looked like he'd have to radio for a tow. So much for that extra money he just made, and a good night's sleep. He sat back into the cab and twiddled with the radio. Bad news. It had been working fine before, but the tumble into the ditch must have knocked it out. He was stranded. Great. He looked out into the mist. No lights, nothing for miles but fog and night. Marty turned his attention to the busted radio. Amateur electrician time, he sighed, prying open the casing with an old screwdriver. Inside, the radio was a jumbled spaghetti of wires and tubes. A dull headache throbbed behind his eyes. This was going to be a long night. When the car suddenly shut, Marty snapped his head around. Behind him loomed a gigantic ink-black shadow. The car shuddered again. Panicked, he tried to start the car. The keys jangled out of his shaking fingers. He had one chance before the thing could get him, he figured. Mind racing, he decided to bolt. But just as he got the door open, the car shuddered again, knocking him out into the mud. Then, somehow, otherworldly power behind it, the car surged onto the road, undercarriage scraping gravel. For the first time, Marty saw the true enormity of the thing. It seemed to black out the whole sky. Could it possibly be a sphere? Some sort of shape-shifting monster come to claim its next victim? Marty scrambled up, shaking, feeling the hot breath of it behind him, when something tapped his shoulder. Marty froze. Slowly, trembling, he began to turn around. A scream caught in Marty's throat. What's the matter? Ain't you never seen an elephant before? Marty's heart stopped as a huge form emerged from the ditch, trunk outstretched, reaching for him, and plopping 4 tickets into his hand. We open Sunday, and bring the kids, 'cause everybody loves the circus. And off the two of them went, silhouetted in Marty's headlight beams. Princess, 2 tons of circus royalty, and her affable, but somewhat smelly trainer. Hey, it's a true story. It really happened. And Marty thanked his lucky stars that he picked up the right guy. I mean, what if it had been the snake charmer?
All right, come on! Yeesh, our first fight. You see, some surprises are the good kind. You can't make the snap judgments humans are known for. I mean, look at my genus, huh? Victimized. I mean, when's the last time somebody went after a butterfly with a broom, huh? Those butterflies. Oh, how do my wings look? Humans, they think beauty is only wing deep. I figure I just gotta get this zookeep's attention, and he'll set me up. Yeah, I'll amaze him with my charm, if I say so myself. I'm pretty classy for a guy who eats dung, yeah. Speaking of which, here's a story about a young thing who thought she was pretty classy. You guessed it. This is a true story. It happened to a friend of mine.
Her name was Cindy. Not only was she head cheerleader, class of '63, dating the captain of the football team, and the prettiest girl at Small Town High, but she had the biggest, blondest, baddest beehive hairdo anyone had ever seen. And every other girl at Small Town High was green with envy. Yeah, Cindy's life was pretty much perfect. Or so everyone thought. You see, keeping a beehive looking perfect was hard work. But the real problem was that Cindy was lazy. And instead of washing her hair and resetting it from scratch, she'd just shellac it with a complicated mixture of plutonium hydroxide and glue, and then seal it all with a little hairspray. Her mother had warned her of the consequences of not washing her hair, but Cindy didn't listen. All that mattered to Cindy was that nobody could tell the difference, even after her hair began to take on the properties of tempered steel. Everything seemed fine until Cindy's senior year, when she began to get these headaches. These throbbing, pulsing, pounding headaches. But they would always pass. Besides, no headache was going to interfere with the goal Cindy had worked towards her entire high school career. To be crowned Miss Teen Queen 1963 at the Small Town High prom. Soon the most important night of Cindy's life had arrived. There she stood on the gymnasium stage, all eyes on her, as the Miss Teen Queen crown was lowered onto that golden spire of hers. A hush fell over the crowd. Cindy stepped up to the microphone. But instead of her carefully rehearsed speech, she let out an ear-piercing scream! Her headache had returned, and this time more painful than ever. She fell to the floor, writhing in agony, clawing and pounding at her beehive, screaming, "Help! Make it stop! Make it stop!" Paramedics raced to the scene, but were helpless to relieve the hysterical girl. Without a moment to spare, they rushed Cindy to the hospital. There, her beehive was immediately x-rayed to locate the problem, but to no avail. The rays couldn't penetrate that dew. Cindy had only one hope. Only one man could solve this medical enigma. But since he was on vacation in Florida, they called in his assistant. He got to work right away, carefully examining Cindy's beehive. The solution was clear. We've got to get inside that dude! Regular surgical instruments just wouldn't cut it. Cindy's beehive had become an impenetrable block. Heat-resistant, shatterproof, it was a modern miracle. The doctor could see that Cindy couldn't take much more. As a last resort, he called for the experimental, high-speed, diamond-tipped XP9000 surgical saw. Stand back! He yelled as the saw cut through that beehive like a hot knife through butter. Her solidified trusses crashed to the floor. He couldn't believe it. Cindy's beehive was completely hollow. The surgical team peered in for a closer look. And what they saw then made their blood run cold. A sight so horrific, so terrifying, that it is etched in their memories to this very day. Crawling out from the hollow center of Cindy's beehive were spiders. Hundreds of big, black, ugly, hairy spiders! Hey, it's a true story, honest. Even ask Cindy. Yeah, she lived. You still see her around every now and then. She's easy to recognize. She's the one with the brush cut.
Yikes! Tell you, I can relate. Seems anybody with more than 5 legs just can't catch a break these days. But I'm changing all that. Finally got the zookeep's attention. Scurried right up his leg and into his underwear. Being friendly-like. You'll never forget me now. Tell ya, life's looking up. Be right back. Told ya, there's nothing better out there. Surprises, secrets, mysteries. Like a dog who isn't really a dog. Or a gator, where you least expect one. A strange shape in the mist, or a thriving ecosystem in your hairdo. Or the surprise you get when you spray a polar bear with bug juice. Turns out Mr. Zookeep didn't appreciate my surprise visit. So he came after me and blasted old sourpuss here right in the snout. The only thing that's not a surprise is humans. Give them a choice, they'll make the wrong one. Walking upright, oh, there's a good one. You know, for all that cranial capacity, they ain't too bright, are they? And if you still don't believe me, I'm not worried. I've got lots more great material, my stock in trade. In fact, you might call them freaky stories. Oh, excuse me. Well, I'm off. Give you time to think about what I'm saying. And remember, just because they never happened, don't mean they ain't true. Oh.